Hi guys, we're looking here at the border checkpoint in Nepal. We can see here people waiting on the Chinese side in Tibet to go towards Nepal. But what they didn't know was that a huge flood was coming down, and it was actually a giant bathtub filled with water running downstream. And I will explain you this in a minute. First we take a look at this footage. We see here that the flood hits the building. Must have had the same height or maybe a bit higher. So we can estimate that the height of this flow of debris and mud was about 40 meters, 130 feet high. So that's huge. Here we get a bit of a better overview. So this is the bridge that the people were trying to pass. We're looking actually in the south direction. So this is Nepal and this is China on this picture. The people were waiting here and the flood came out of this direction. This is upstream and this is downstream. And now we're going to look at the footage of the people who are standing on the other side, so on this side. So now we're on the Chinese side. Actually it goes up here. This road goes partially down, but overall this road goes up. But also these people have to run for their lives because the flood has such a huge power. The people running away, even uphill, have no chance. So to have a bit of an overview, this is the Langtang Lirung mountain. So here we see a section of that mountain. The Langtang Lirung is about 7,250 meters high, 4.5 miles. Because of an earthquake, the glacier broke on about 5,250 meter, 3.3 miles. So the top of the mountain is here. This glacier broke more or less here, and the water ran down towards Rasuwagadhi, and that's where the checkpoint is. If we take a look at Rasuwagadhi, so the water came from here. Most of the water went downstream, but we saw that the people were also not safe upstream because of this massive power of the flood. And of course, floods already have an enormous power, but the power became even bigger because, like we said, the glacier broke. It took down a lot of debris, like rocks, including mud. It made itself a dam here around Bembo, and that's how it created a giant bathtub. So we can see that here. The glacier broke, the water and the debris came down, and it created itself, because of the huge rocks and the mud, a temporary dam here. So this bathtub started like this, and it started to fill, and then the dam gave way. So all this water ran down in one go. We can also see that it's a really steep mountain, which makes the speed of the water even higher. So in especially this part of the mountain, the canyon is really narrow, and a huge amount of water makes that this water has more speed and has more force in the direction of that border checkpoint. So here we see a view at the top of the mountain after the flood, and this one is before the glacier broke. On that moment before, so this is the 24th of August, we see also that this canyon was pretty dry. There was barely water in that river. And now, one day after the flood, we can see, of course, a lot more. Well, let's go back to the true colors. We can see here the width of that river. So the water came down from here. And here's the checkpoint in Rasuwagadhi. And we can see the checkpoint also here. The bridge with the northern part and the southern part. Nepal and China/Tibet. Nepal, Tibet. And we see here that it was completely ran over by mud. The river before, it almost tripled the width of the river, knowing that it has a V shape, so the higher it goes, the more water fits in. And if we go more downstream, we reach the first serious town. It's called Temur. We also see Temur here in Google Earth. There are quite some houses, hotels. Everything can be found here, very popular for tourists. So we can also see that on this image here, the same houses. And so this is before the flood and this is after. It's completely ran over by mud and rocks. So from Temur we go to the next place, and they filmed that recently here from a helicopter. And there we see that actually the next village is washed away as well, but not completely. So there are some houses left here. and here as well. So we go from Timur. There's a junction. This is downstream, and the other one here goes up. So we can see that also here. The mud here also went partially upstream, but just reached 1/4 mile till here. And here we see the next town. So it's called Sayupru Basi. So this green guest house most probably was safe. So they were lucky here. All these buildings were also run over by mud. This part survived, and that's what we just saw. So that's this part here survived. So that's this building, some of these houses here. So half of this town. So we can also see that they were a bit located higher up. So before 24th of August, and now it at least tripled here, the width of the river. From there, here are some houses which most probably were also unlucky, Mailung. And this village was better prepared. So here where the Shanti Bazaar is, we can also see that here. But it looks like this town got not hit by the flood because the river had more space here. The buildings were not directly next to the river. Okay, this was Manakanama, and from there we go a bit more down. We see that these are no houses. The river has here a bit more space till we find the next and also the last village, and this one is called Bidur. And Bidur, there are some interesting footage. Most of the city is also not hit by the flow of debris, but some houses collapsed. Let's take a look at that. We can see that here the flood is coming, it brings down this bridge. This bridge has no chance, of course, and this line of houses actually protects the rest of the houses behind them. So here's Bidur before the flood, actually a huge city. Here is where the footage was taken. This is the bridge that was collapsed, and this is after, where we also see that the mud and the debris took over, and most probably these, especially the first row of apartments here, collapsed. So the ones that were still standing here, we don't see them anymore. We have to go a far end down the mountain to see that the width of the river becomes how it's supposed to be. So around Galchi here, the width of the river becomes normal again. So this is the starting point of the flood, and here's more or less the point where the width of the river became normal again. So then it has no impact anymore on the houses that are standing next to the river. So this is 20 kilometers, around 8 miles. We can easily say that this flood had impact on 80 kilometers, so 32 miles. So all the villages around this area were impacted by the flood. So that's an enormous length. So it also did an enormous damage. All right, if you liked the video, feel free to buy me a coffee, and see you in the next video.